On this second hour, we are looking at the state of the nation and mostly on the state of politics. Of course, after the truce between President William Ruto and the Right Honorable former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, a lot of emerging issues have emerged, and especially yesterday. Yesterday, the President did confirm and underscored that there is not going to be a handshake. And the good thing is that the common denominator as well as Azimio coalition leader Raila Odinga also said there is not going to be a handshake, but what we are fighting for is that more or less everything that we want done or our demands should also encompass or should also be broadened to incorporate other stakeholders, because after the announcement on Sunday, we talked about partisan parliamentary select committee or an ad hoc committee for that matter, but he said that this should be inclusive. Well, that resonates a lot with Kenyans, talking about the high cost of living, fuel, and that is a discussion that we'll be having here. And joining me on set are two doctors. Beginning with my immediate left, we have Dr. Gideon Muliongi, who is the MP Mwingi Central. Karibu sana mheshimiwa.
Asante sana, shukran.
Just next to him is Dr. Churchill Saoke. Dr. Churchill Saoke is a leadership and governance analyst, and also he is a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Karibu sana, Doc.
Asante, thank you.
It's been a while.
Thank you.
First things first, Mheshimiwa, for avoidance of doubt, you are in the Azimio coalition, being a Wiper MP.
Yes.
And we have seen some of the coalition MPs are not quite in Azimio. I'm talking about looking at what happened in terms of maandamanos and the sentiments these leaders are always on media talking about. You are in Azimio and you support everything that Azimio is talking about?
Nam, I'm 100% Azimio. Elected under Wiper ticket, which is a coalition partner.
Yes.
In Azimio One Kenya Alliance. And therefore I support the manifesto, the policies, and the agenda of Azimio 100%.
Yesterday, the Azimio leader, Raila Odinga, said that, yes, indeed, you talked about a parliamentary caucus that will discuss the issues that had made Azimio go to the streets. Yesterday, UDA talked about more or less like you are changing the goalpost, talking about encompassing now, bringing in more stakeholders. I would like you to touch on that.
You know, from the beginning, we raised issues of concern, which were affecting Kenyans. And they were based on 3 pillars. And the first pillar was the high cost of living, which was affecting everybody.
Yes.
Both Kenya Kwanza, Azimio, everybody in Kenya. And the other one was the constitution of the IEBC, because Kenya Kwanza had moved very fast to constitute IEBC on their own, head-handing, and that is like appointing a referee on your own who is going to oversee the game. And therefore, the other issue was, of course, disputed election results, whereby 3 commissioners agreed, 4 commissioners disagreed, went to court agreed with the 3 commissioners, and in democracy, majority should win. And we also got inside information that Azimio is the one which won. And those are the issues which we raised. And because Kenya Kwanza refused to listen and discuss, then we decided to go to the streets. Because if your father or your mother cannot listen to you, you are bound to make noise so that you can be listened to. And we then decided to make noise so that we can be heard. And of course, there was very hardline stand, very hardline stand, just thumping, you know, arrogance. You know, leaders was allied to Kenya Kwanza were operating in utopia, you know, ivory tower, just thumping, you know, very aloof. And these are the people who messed up the president. And therefore, finally, of course, when we went to the streets, there was a lot of resistance from the government, supported by the police. A lot of people were injured in the demonstrations, innocent citizens, Kenyans, because when you go to the streets, there are people who are even Kenya Kwanza, who even come out to see Baba. They just come out to see what is happening. Allied to even Kenya Kwanza. Not all demonstrators in the streets are Azimio.
All right. We're going to also look at how practical are some of the issues that Azimio have raised.
I was now heading to answer your question because I've not even, I was doing a preamble to get to your question. And therefore, a lot of people were affected and injured, others were maimed, some were killed in the demonstrations. That was not the agenda of Azimio. Azimio was just to push for those three agendas, not to get Kenyans killed, murdered in daylight by the police. And therefore, finally, the president, whom we do not recognize from the Azimio side, saw some sense, and therefore agreed for some talks. Yeah, and I'm sure those arrogant guys were ashamed. You know, those kitchen guys. I mean, they were ashamed when the president now finally said, "No, I'm ready for talks, but through a structured system." Of course, there can't be talks which are not structured. All talks must have to be structured and must abide by the law. And if they are not within the law can be changed to suit the circumstances at the time. And therefore, the president then said we is ready for a bipartisan talk, but steered through Parliament and gave us his terms. And as Mio, we also gave our terms of what we think. And there is nothing much we changed because the president said these talks will be done through Parliament, within the law. And we said, yes, it will be done through Parliament, and Parliament is members of Parliament. There will be some members of Parliament who will be nominated to sit in those talks. And we also said, so that we are fair, we also need some international observers, you know, like Kofi Annan, you know, that category to come and, you know, be part of that and parcel of those talks. And once the talks are concluded, because talks cannot be done in the chamber, talks have to be done somewhere, and then the proposals then are brought to Parliament. That's all what Azimio has said.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing that has changed.
And it's a good thing that you've mentioned that the broadening of the engagement in terms of who are, and the issues that we have, and the people who are also, including the clergy. I would like you, Doc, to also chip in that. When they announced the ceasefire, the Wanjiku was never mentioned. And even when Parliament was mentioned, a lot of Kenyans cried foul that indeed the two leaders have spoken, but nobody has mentioned that Wanjiku should be in the talks. But now yesterday, Azimio, as UDA are talking about, they are shifting goalposts. But this is something that could be welcomed by Kenyans, that they also need to encompass other stakeholders other than politicians alone.
Well, you see, when you look at any negotiations, the success of any negotiation is dependent on the composition of individuals who is acceptable to both parties in that dispute. And, you know, in as much as the Wanjiku might be crying foul about the representation, it's also important to be practical. That, I mean, everything is that is going to be discussed there by whoever. The Wanjiku cannot be, we cannot say that they'll be out of the picture. Everything will be discussed, will be things that pertains to them. And I think the whole question about broadening stakeholders so that you have a bigger, you have more people within the negotiation table, work best for both parties in terms of ensuring that there is no one person or there is no one party in the conflict or in the negotiation that has got an upper hand. Like, you know, for example, you might say that if we decide that we draw the membership entirely from Parliament, then you might actually see that there is a specific side that will have an upper hand in the negotiation, and that will render maybe the dispute escalating more, because the other party will feel that the other side or one side has got as an upper hand. So this broadening of the stakeholders within any negotiation space helps to level the discussion and have the discussion much more, you know, each party being acceptable with the individuals, and also the whole concept of neutrality. All right, the whole concept of neutrality is very important, you know. If there is because if this whole thing has to become successful, then there has to be honesty and goodwill from the key political players, the president and the former president. And if they, in the assumption that they have got goodwill and they want honest deliberation, then there is need to have maybe a neutral party taking control to bring the temperatures down of the people who are going to be engaged there, because remember that each party is going to bring the hardliners, and these hardliners will always want to push their agendas through. So you need, you cannot have hardliners being mediated with a hardliner. There has to be somebody who will come, is able to analyze the emotional intelligence of the both parties and persuade both parties, and you know, within the negotiation table and outside of the negotiation table, so that a deal can emerge out of that negotiation. If that is not set now, and you know, it is important that both parties speak about it now. So that, because you see, this is the time for agenda setting. If you don't raise those issues now, then it's not going to be part of the table. So it is very normal with any negotiation process that in the initial stages there will be this kind of divisions emerging, each party wanting this, another party wanting that. So it is the role of that key negotiator, who we are yet to see who is going to be that person who will emerge and help now bring all these diverse extreme positions of the both parties, so that we can have a common ground that, you know what, this is the agenda, these are the priorities, these are the timelines, and this is the mode that we are going to use to handle this negotiation so that we get a deal. And that's how,
and that's why maybe that's why they talked about they would like more or less like an Annan deal that was realized in 2008. But still on the same, they have talked about subsidies to cushion the Kenyans, just like the last regime did some few months to the election. Do you think, even the World Bank and IMF have talked about, they are not sustainable? I would like you to dig in that, and then we hear what Mheshimiwa has to say regarding that.
It's important, as they discuss these issues of the cost of living, to consider really what is in the best interest of the people. Because you see, in as much as issues around subsidies might not be sustainable, but in the time that we are, they could be the best thing to deal with. Because, I mean, remember that when the cost of living is high, the government is also hurting its image. All right? So there are certain hard decisions that any government must make and disregard any opinion of international partners, because I can assure you, and I can say this, that, you know, there are international organizations that will never want subsidies in any country. We have seen it before, and around the world, they'll never want subsidies. So it is upon the representatives of the people to ask themselves, in as much as it is not sustainable, is it the best interest for the people as is now?
Mheshimiwa,
Yes, sir.
they've talked about subsidies, and the government and also the president, when he took over the reins of power in September, said that we have to do away with the subsidies. They are hurting the nation. And your leader has talked about the subsidies coming back. What do you think? We are a recovering economy.
You know, Mr. Joe,
Yes.
when you are a leader, you must have a listening ear. You should be able to listen to the people you lead. You cannot be up there in the ivory tower enjoying yourself in State House, and the people you are leading are crying. Even in your house, when your children, your family have no food, you can't let them sleep hungry. You must find a solution, immediate solution, to cushion that particular day as you look forward. Now, when the cost of living started rising just before elections, and Kenyans made noise, the then President Uhuru Kenyatta listened and heard their cries and quickly moved to cushion the economy through subsidies. And it never took him a week. Cost of unga came down. Yeah. When President Ruto took over, he quickly removed the subsidy against his policies of taking care of the hustlers. Quickly removed the subsidies, and the cost of unga went up from 100 shillings to 250. 220, it varies from various areas. So it shot up. And that was against his manifesto. And therefore, personally, even if subsidies are not sustainable, yeah, we have also to listen to the economists, the professionals. If subsidies are not professional, there must be a stopgap measure, you know, short-term solution as you look at the long term. Because according to President Ruto, we want a sustainable solution. People are planting maize now. We are waiting for the maize to grow so that we can harvest. As you do that, what measures are you taking in the short run? There must be that short-run solution. And the short-run solution we are talking about, before you build that foundation of sustainable solutions, agriculture, and all that, you must now build that. You must have a short-term solution. And the short-term solution is subsidy. So we are saying return the subsidies now as a short-term solution to cushion Kenyans at the moment. When you build your foundation and you're now growing up, then remove the subsidies.
And I'm quite sure that resonates quite well with a lot of Kenyans. And there are two sides of this coin. On one side, the former Premier Raila Odinga talks about the subsidies should be back, adds that these talks should be inclusive. But on the other side, Kenyans were quick to note that on Sunday, when he was announcing the truce that no mandamonos for now, he never mentioned anything that touches on Wanjiku. Maybe it's a turnaround, a quick turnaround. Yesterday he said the subsidies, the cost of living and the fuel do not need the bipartisan parliamentary select committee or ad hoc committee, but he said these are things that the president can just do.
Let me tell you something. The three demands, irreducible minimums, which Azimio are talking about, the cost of living, IBC, and opening the server. Okay, those are the three pillars, although we have added another one. Yeah, we have added another one.
You're shifting goalposts.
No, there's no shifting goalposts. You know, as you evolve, things change.
Okay.
Because as we make these demands, the other side is busy buying as mere leaders with the money. You know, they approach Muliungi, they give him a lot of money, anaona hapana, wacha nichukue hii pesa ninyamaze. Okay? We are saying, adding another one, that if you are elected under Azimio umbrella and you go to parliament and you change to Kenya Kwanza, you must go back to the electorate. Those people who send you to parliament to elect you again in Kenya Kwanza. Okay? So that we caution political prostitution in parliament. Okay? That will come out in the talks. It will be there. Okay? So those are pillars, those are headlines. Even Ruto, when he was issuing his statement, he never talked about high cost of living. He ignored it. So Baba was responding to Ruto, yeah, in his statement as well. So when the talks start, under those headlines, those headings, many issues will be raised and agreed upon. So there is nothing that we have ignored. We understand what we are talking about, what we are looking at, and high cost of living is priority number one.
All right, and we'll get back to that server, which has quite cost us in the country. Doc, looking at calls by a section of the Kenyans and part of the clergy as well, they say that these Thanksgiving services should be shelved. And they say that for the cohesion of the nation, we have seen what is coming out of these Thanksgiving ceremonies or masses. We have seen politicians pull hatred. We have seen them politic at the pulpit, and it's not quite helping the situation in the country. I would like you to respond to that.
Ben, I find that quite oxymoronic, because who invites them in the pulpit?
The clergy.
So why don't they have the power to just have them be there as congregants? So one of the ways of, one of the ways that of conditions that they can decide is to say that if we are organizing a Thanksgiving service, then it is a Thanksgiving service and there is no political talk. Of course, it's a very difficult thing, and maybe it could have been one of the conditions that could have been brought here as part of the ceasefire, because in some of those talks, in some of those Thanksgiving services, there's been a lot of there's been a lot of political venom that is coming out of it, most of which can actually accelerate the current disputes, and the president. The president, in as much as the president is able to tone down some of his loyalties, it's equally important that the clergy also help in doing so. The only challenge is that I find the Thanksgiving prayer meetings are more driven by the political players who are organizing those. So even if they were to be stopped, maybe they advise the president to stop those prayer meetings. That's one. And also two, the politicians who are going into the churches, maybe they should not be given platforms to speak politics, like I saw in one of the churches recently. So it's about the church taking that responsibility of saying that, the church is for winning souls, for preaching to the heartbroken, and for healing the nation, and not for breaking the nation. And if we want a Thanksgiving, somebody should just come out and become a voice of reason to the leadership of even Kenya Kwanza, and tell them that, if we are organizing these prayer meetings, let's have them be meetings that heal the country. And any messages that is coming out of these meetings should be messages that are not necessarily targeting our political opponents, but are meant to bring the nation together. In fact, that would actually be a very good platform that they could exemplify themselves and bring out the statesmanship out of them.
And Mheshimiwa, I'm quite sure you have a word on that in terms of the Thanksgiving ceremonies that we have seen. But my earlier question on the server, the Azimio Brigade has talked about the server for a number of weeks now. Something that did not come up during the election petition at the Supreme Court, A. B, the president talking about we need the servers opened. IEBC, I'm quite sure, is the only electoral body that is mandated with the electoral matters in the country. So when your brigade talks about opening the server, I think that is something that should be directed to IEBC. And questions is, why did this not come up during the election petition? And why now? Why the server now? It should have been opened earlier on.
You know, even in 2017, there was a demand to open the server. Court directed IEBC to open the server. They did not open. In our court petition in 2022, we also demanded the server to be opened. It was not opened. And since the Supreme Court ruled the way they ruled, and there is no other place you can go, it is final, then we decided to go back to the Constitution. Constitution belongs to the people. The Kenyans are the makers of the Constitution. The sovereign power belongs to the people. We went to the public court. The public court is the people of Kenya. And now the people of Kenya are now speaking through the demonstrations and then demanding bipartisan talk, which is outside court. It is beyond. It is now beyond court. And you know, once this bipartisan court, if this bipartisan talks, if they agree, let's go and open the server, court will be bypassed. The court, the Supreme Court will be bypassed. This is beyond them. Yeah. So we are now saying, because we discovered that Raila is the one who won with 8.1 million, and the Ruto got 5.9 million.
But you guys are not proving it.
It will be proven when we open the server. That's why we are saying, open the server, where the results were being transmitted. They are there. Yeah. And we have done that analysis.
So in short, you're accusing IEBC of colluding.
Yes, we are accusing,
to ensure that your leader, your Azimio leader, was denied the victory.
We are not. Yeah, they denied Azimio leader victory. We are not even accusing them. They even accused themselves.
How is that?
Four of them, commissioners. You know,
they should have been the first ones to say
they even accused themselves, because four. Refused to announce the results. They say these are not the actual results. 3 agreed with the Chembukati.
I totally concur, because yes, that is the drama that unfolded.
That is a drama.
But this
ask yourself
anything about opening the server. They should have said, we do not want this result. Let's open the server.
That time there was nothing like opening the server. The results were on the table. The forms were there. Yes. They had the physical forms there.
Don't you think this could alter maybe the politics of the day, and also alter a lot of things in the country, Mheshimiwa?
Of course, that is what we are looking at. We are looking at the legitimacy of President Ruto as the president of Kenya. Because if he was announced the winner by mistake, then that has to be reversed. There must be a political solution to that problem. And you can even see, even the way the results were announced, the fake results which were announced, 6.9 against 7.1. Kenya is 50-50. It's divided into two. Half of the Kenyans belong to Azimio. Then a half of the other Kenyans belong to Kenya Kwanza. If I was the president today, I would work towards uniting those two. The side which never supported me, bring them to.
That himself, he has said that he is going to unite Kenya.
How is it united when venom is coming from Ngachangwa? the deputy president, and this other guy, majority leader. How is he uniting when he's calling Baba kitendawili, abusing them in public rallies? Is that uniting? Is that what you call uniting?
But also the demonstrations are not uniting Kenyans as well.
That is a fallback position because of the abusing language venom that is coming from the mouth of the leaders allied to Kenya Kwanza. It's a reaction that you cannot mishandle, even if you purportedly won the elections. We are human beings. We demand respect. You can't be there calling us kitendawili. Mtu ya kitendawili, mtu ya maandamano. There must be respect.
Dr. Churchill, I would like you to weigh in on that issue about the server being opened. Of course, a lot of Kenyans have raised issues with that, and even a good question is why this thing did not come up earlier on. And what if there is that server and we go and open and we find quite different from what even Azimio is saying and what Kenya Kwanza is saying? Because it's also a possibility, because since then we've never been told where that server is, who are manning that server. So in as much as we would want to go the server way, it could change a lot of dynamics in the country.
But I want us to look at it this way. You know, when you look at the history of the growth of democracies and nations, the whole question of certain unprecedented events that happened changed the course of those countries and how those countries do their businesses of election or any other thing. And it's important maybe for us to think about it.
Looking at how the state of politics are in the country, I have Dr. Gideon Muliongi of Mwingi Central, and also we have Dr. Churchill Saoke, governance expert and also a lecturer at JKU Art. Now, earlier on you had touched something on the issue of server, because if you're talking about the server, you can find anything, and maybe we are not quite sure, and I'm not accusing them, maybe somebody has tampered with something in the short period that after election, because the issue of the server has come up now. And how can it change the dynamics of the country if we decide to open it up and find totally different things?
Well, thanks, Ben. I was just saying something that in the history of development of countries, especially the opening of the democratic spaces, there are certain unprecedented events that have happened, some of which are extra-constitutional. And of course, you saw that even in the year 2007, that led to the new constitution of 2010 through the National Accord. And we may need to look at this more broadly and ask ourselves that, you know, the opposition in 2017 raised issues of opening of servers. In 2022, they also raised issues of opening of servers. In each of the two scenarios, they indicated that even upon request of the courts, the servers were not opened. Now, when you look at the journey and the trajectory, the path that Kenya has taken towards broadening our democratic space, we have always wanted to advance from one level to another so that elections can be free, fair, and reflect the will of the people. And that is what brought us into the technology. And now we are getting to a point where there is obscurity in the election process. And the election management sort of is, many people are not familiar with what is happening. And from what is now being said, that there could be something in the server that the people need to know, including those who have won. Because if there is a strategy that is being used to manipulate elections through technology, then nobody is not at risk. Anybody is at risk. And the question that we need to ask ourselves is, who is in charge? Who is really in charge? Assuming that it is true, and I'm going to come to what you're saying, what you asked me. Who is really in charge? And in whose interest is he driving the new leaders that are emerging out of this electoral process of the technology that is obscure? So that is something that should worry any Kenyan today and into the future. Because we could be thinking that we are a democratic, independent republic, yet in real sense we are not. Somebody somewhere is actually micromanaging us. through technology. And that is very disastrous, because it means that at some point one day you can even have, you know, an extremist, terrorist extremist being a leader of this country. And then we will not be having any country anymore.
Yeah.
So we need to look at the bigger picture and ask ourselves, is there somebody who is manipulating our elections through technology?
No.
And if it is there, in whose interest is he, she doing it? So
in as much as it has been, everybody's asking why now, it's a good thing for Kenyans, mostly because of the future.
It is something that is good for the future of the country, because we do not know. Today it might be used to get a good leader. Tomorrow it might be used to get an extremely worst leader, and we will then cry that we wished we had acted upon this earlier.
Okay.
So me, I think from where I sit and looking at it objectively, it might be something that is good to look at, and if we find inside there are questions that are emerging, it should make us to ask further questions so that we get answers that will make our elections free, fair, and that which reflects the will of the people.
Honorable Muliongi, looking at even Mwingi Central, I've seen a question thrown in the tabloids. Why is it that Azimio MPs, they're not rallying their people back in their constituents, but more or less like want to be relevant in the national political scene? What would you say?
Rallying to do what?
Rally your people for maandamanos and demonstrations that were being there.
I don't think we had reached a level of countrywide demonstrations. When we reach that level, you'll see everybody, including from Lower Eastern, in the streets. If you recall what the leader of Azimio announced, he announced maandamano in Nairobi, in the city's CBD, starting from KICC. He never announced maandamano all over the country. It's only that some people are faster. Yeah, faster than Baba himself.
Yes.
And therefore that time will come if talks don't bear fruits.
All right. You're also a national leader, and you're also the MP Mwingi Central. You're in power for about seven months now?
No,
since election?
Yes.
Yes, you were there, yes. But we are not talking about something that Kenya can identify with.
Yes.
Because, let's be very honest, the country hasn't moved a lot since we did the elections. Do you concur?
Yes, we are now doing the 7th month.
You are also a national leader. You are the MP for Mwingi Central.
Yes.
Something you've also done, you've been doing for the Mwingi Central MP as you also engage in the national politics.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want me to tell you what I've been doing for
at least for the 7 months.
I've sunk 10 boreholes. 10.
In the last 7 months?
In the last six months. 6 months. We are now doing the 7th. In the last 6 months, I have dunk 7 boreholes in primary schools and secondary schools.
Yeah, because I'm quite sure
I've issued bursaries to more than 20,000 students, deserving students. I've constructed more than I think 20 classrooms in schools. I've graded roads. I've done 4 drifts, concrete drifts along rivers within those 6 months. So we are working.
Despite the fact that you're in the national politics?
Yes, we are working in the opposition. Yeah, just underline that. I have done that, but I've not gone to State House to beg for anything. Yes.
What would you like to tell your colleagues in Azimio who more or less look like, for lack of a better word, a watermelon, because they are partly in Azimio, but they more or less seem to be dancing with Kenya Kwanza. And they are your colleagues in the coalition and in parliament as well.
You know, that is what we call political prostitution. And you know, since time immemorial, that terminology does exist. And it is a decision of a person with loose morals, you know. And therefore, those are politicians with loose morals. They don't have a stand, they don't have a position. They want to get quick money, because if you go to State House, you've been given some little money and promises which may never come. Yeah, so that is not Mulyungi. Yes.
Churchill, as we wind up, what is the future of Kenya in regards to the talks that we are expecting, and we are so expectant as Kenyans to bear fruits?
I think I would say that Kenyans are hopeful and very expectant on the truce between the president and the former PM. My call and my rallying call is that let them engage in honest talk with the best interest of the country, looking at the future. Because some of these things happen to other people today, then tomorrow it will be someone else. So we need to build a nation that has got the future generation in mind.
Mheshimiwa, wrap it up, your final sentiments.
I want to say is to call to our principals, our leaders, for reasons to prevail, so that Kenyans don't suffer anymore. And the main principle in this game, the main principle, the pillar of these talks is President Ruto. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Honorable Dr. Gideon Mulyungi, who is the MP Mwingi Central, and just next to him, Dr. Churchill Saoke, who is a governance expert and also a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. They are putting things into perspective where we're looking at the state of the nation and the politics, looking at peace, cohesion, and bipartisan politics. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's continue this conversation on social media. My name is Ben Troy Njue. Thanks indeed for joining us.
Yes, sir.